Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
G'day, how you going? Phil Tarrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show. We're in this moment in time in May where we celebrate our 1,000th episode of this podcast, which is pretty cool to have. Well, maybe it's cool. I sit there and think of all the conversations I've had over many years. Often, most of the time I've wanted to do them. Often I haven't wanted to do them. Sometimes I just go, yeah, I don't really feel like doing a Smart Property Investment Show today. I'm sick of talking about property. Doesn't happen very often, but it's been a really good journey. So 1,000th episode in. I don't know what the next 1,000 are going to look like, but no doubt they'll be as thrilling as they ever have been. I guess doing 1,000 episodes, you sort of start to know a fair bit about property. So maybe my question answering is getting better. Thankfully, we've had some guests, a consistency of guests over this period of time. Some of them good, some of them indifferent. Some of them I've liked, some of them I've disliked. Some of them have been really popular with our audience, some of them less so. And Sam Gordon from Australian Property Scout, I'm not sure where he fits in with that, but he joins me back in the studio today. I'll work out where he fits by the end of the podcast. Sam, how you going?
Phil, mate, always a pleasure. Mate, always a pleasure to cop a bit of a roasting from you as soon as we walk in. So thank you, mate.
It should have been any other way. Now, I hear that, I know you run a buyer's agent business, and
yes,
you've told us that over the years how good it is, and you won an award recently. No one knows about that, obviously.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
And you've got an education course, School of Property, but I hear that you're a motivational speaker these days.
No.
What's this? You had some thing up on the Gold Coast with 500 people come along to listen to all the words of wisdom. That sounds pretty cool.
It was cool, mate. It was a really cool day. So we had the Australian Property Scout Summit. That was on the 13th of April. Man, it was awesome. It was an amazing thing. I've never really spoken from the stage before. So it was to go from nothing to then in front of 500 people was different, but it was
nervous?
Cool. Not really.
No?
I wasn't. And then I got up on stage the first 5 minutes. I was a bit like, whoa, like this is decent. And then, yeah, man, it was really cool. I just got into the flow, mate. Started hooking into all the topics that we were doing. So I think we did. We're supposed to do 12 topics. So I ran an hour and a half over and still had to clip 2 of them, which I recorded for everyone and sent them out to everyone so they could still hear it after. But mate, it was awesome. It was a massive.
Did you have like
day.
disco lights and flashing lights and like fire cannons going off?
Yeah, a couple of fireworks going. No, definitely not.
None of that sort of stuff.
Nah, I was jointly hosted by it with my podcast co-host from Scouting Australia podcast, Big Jimmy. He's done a lot of this stuff in his time. He used to run an events company like back in the day, so he's very skilled, I think, on this side of things.
Who emceed it? Did you emcee it?
No, he emceed it.
Okay, yeah. So he was like, kept everything going, and so it was like panels and stuff, and
So we started with a piece with he and I, and then I think I ran 4 or 5 sessions up until lunch by myself, and that was really, really cool. And then we had the lunch, and then we had panels. We had a Where Are They Now with a couple of our investors with their big portfolios and journeys. We had a round table with the APS panel. You can actually hear that, so that got released on the Scouting Australia podcast. And then we had an APS panel with some of our kind of closed doors professionals that we don't really talk about openly to the public. They're sort of like the APS team. Man, that's a few of those segments are in School of Property. So it was awesome, but like it was a massive day, and everyone seemed to love it. So it was cool.
What did you have for lunch? Did you give cakes and sandwiches and stuff?
I don't know.
That's the most important thing. You didn't have any, did you?
Nah, mate, I had a steak. I'm a carnivore sort of, like I'm on carnivore. So I just smacked a steak for lunch. But apparently the food was actually mad. It was at the Star, so apparently it was really good. So it was a cool day, man.
Was sort of people whistling and high-fiving and belly bumping and doing all that? Was it like heavy hype, or was it like?
Nah, I don't do it like that. No. Like I'm not that sort of dude. But it was cool, man. The energy was mad. The questions were awesome. I think people took a lot of value.
So people got involved.
Yeah, really involved. Yeah.
Because sometimes you speak of these property things, people just look at you like a deer in a headlight, too scared to say anything.
Nah, it was very. I think people feel like they know us from the podcast, because obviously we've been doing the podcast now for like even ours have been going for 18 months, and then before that, you and I have been doing this for 4 or 5 years before that as well. So it's been a long time that people have felt like they've kind of known us as well. So yeah, people were throwing heaps of questions. It was really good. A few of the team thought I was going to get caught out with a couple of left fielders, but I have. What
was the hardest question you had to answer? Do you have any sort of like negative people there going, yeah, I don't know, because there's always a heckler, right? Like, and I do love a heckler.
Mate,
yeah.
I asked openly in the audience. I realized as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. But I just straight out just came out and go, I think we were talking about something. I said, is there anyone in the room that's with APS that hasn't made money? You know what I mean? And like, that's a pretty bold question to put there in front of 500 people, but there hadn't been. Of course not. Like we run by a very strict way of doing business, and we invest the same for our clients the same way that I built my portfolio. So there's a reason why I'm confident when I say things like that you're not going to get a negative response. But it was awesome, mate. Like honestly, the energy was crazy. The people after the event said to us from the start, not to me, but to a couple of the girls when they were kind of packing up and everything, that normally everyone clears out as soon as it's finished at 4:35, whatever. Everyone's clears out. We finished at 6. I think we were supposed to finish at 5. I think it was like 6, little after 6. And the place stayed packed until like 8:30 until they kicked us out. So it was crazy, man. It was the best
everyone
atmosphere.
talking to each other.
Yeah, and like, chatting to us, chatting to the team, chatting to each other. And it was just awesome, man. Like just so many people. The whole idea of it was never at all to do, it had nothing to do with making money. Literally, I charged enough to cover the cost of the event. It was literally just to inspire people to try and go harder, think bigger, think differently about their portfolios. And we think very differently about building a portfolio. So yeah, man, it was challenging a lot of beliefs from that side. And yeah.
And they're mainly clients there, was it?
It was a solid mix. Probably like 60-70% of the room were clients. Yeah. I think what blew me away was the amount of people that flew in from interstate. So it was one of the first questions I asked.
Why everyone needed an excuse to go to the Gold Coast?
Yeah. Mate, it was. You know what it's like, man. People, if there's an excuse, they'll kick the can down the road to avoid doing something. But it was like 480 odd guests or something. I think it was. I reckon 75% of the room put their hand up for having come interstate, which is ridiculous. People committing to try and
probably a question for the accountant. That's tax deduction. Property education. Can you claim that against?
I think it's a mixed response.
Yeah, depends your accountant, right?
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. As long as you're an investment, but I reckon you'd have a crack at it.
You gonna do another one?
Yeah, we're going to do one at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I was planning on doing one a quarter, but it wiped me out. Like a fair bit kind of went into it. Yeah. And I go pretty hard with everything at the same time as it is. So it was a lot extra sort of on top. But yeah, I think I'll do them biannually instead of annually. But it's cool, mate. Like it really, you could see how many people were like super motivated. And that was the biggest feedback we got. Like people were just ready to run through brick walls to go hard.
I want to talk to you about this today because I've been thinking about buyer's agents a lot, right? And there's a lot of buyer's agents out there these days. I call you guys like you and there's a cohort of you guys like you're probably second generation buyer's agents. Okay. You're not like that. Yeah. You're not like the OG.
Yeah, of course. Right? Yeah.
Who were around sort of 25 years ago. Like you're this sort of cadre of what I think represents quality buyer's agents in today's marketplace. But there's a whole bunch of other there's buyer's agents coming out of the woodwork, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So I'll sit there and I hear you talk about this successful event, which is cool. The fact that you're educating investors, that's cool.
Yep.
You've got your school of property, that's cool. The better educated people are, the better they can make decisions. And what a lot of people get wrong, I believe, is that they feel as though by using a buyer's agent, they're outsourcing all responsibility about the success of their portfolio. That needs to be owned by the property investor. The buyer's agent's there to support you along the way by giving you quality and timely and accurate sort of strategies, advice and tactics. So are accountants, so are mortgage brokers, etc. But the responsibility sits with the property investor. You still need to say yes or no. So you need to be educated, right? That's the reason why a whole bunch of people listen to this podcast, because they think they're more educated as a result of it. However, there's not that many really great properties in the market today.
That's very true.
But there's a lot of property investors who all want to create wealth through property, which is cool.
Yep.
They tune this podcast and other podcasts and educate and inform themselves around it. And there's a lot of other buyer's agents out there all trying to help these people out, right?
Yeah.
So is there enough great properties out there for the property investors that want to buy these great properties? And I feel as though there's a disconnect. I don't think there's enough, right? Which means that if you're buying, potentially you're not buying, and this is not just buyer's agents, this is everyone else doing it directly, right? Which is still most people, right? They don't use a buyer's agent. You can do it direct. It's cool. I do it. I've used both, right? So if everyone is out there looking for a great property, not all properties can be great properties. So therefore, some people are getting great properties, but I think most people are probably getting mediocre properties. And there's a whole bunch of people who are probably getting stud properties. So how are you going with all this? You can't, is there enough great properties out there for you to satisfy the needs of your clients? 500 people coming to see you go, all right, Sam, I need you to find, you can't find 500 great properties today, tomorrow, the next day, right? It's a tough spot you're in.
It is. Mate, it's funny you asked me before, were there any curveball or negative people trying to have a crack? Because that was probably the only real big one that I think people probably thought I was going to get caught out on was there's a room here of, over, nearly 500 people. How can you source this many properties for clients? And I think what's important to note is and this goes for everyone, right, out there trying to source great deals. But I think the biggest thing is, for one, not everyone's trying to source at the same time. So there's obviously that side of things, right? Yeah. But even in that sense of, and by the way, we obviously do not source. You're never trying to source for hundreds of clients at the same time. It doesn't work. Like you can't source deals on that sort of volume and still retain great quality. But I think the biggest thing, man, is when people come in with us, we set them very real expectations of how long it's going to take to find a deal. One of the biggest red flags is someone can find you a deal immediately or very quickly in this market. It is not a great deal. I guarantee you it is not a great deal. Great deals are not sitting on the shelf. It's not like walking into Woolies or Coles and you're finding something that's on sale. It takes time to source that and to find that. And so we very early in the piece tell our clients that it's going to take time to find you the right deal. We have a certain level of quality that we guarantee our clients that we always operate by and always source by. And yeah, man, so we're always retaining that side of things. So we're just very upfront with telling people it's going to take you a little bit of time, but the quality of the deal is what's paramount. It's our name as well. So if someone just wants something straight away at market value, we're not the buyer's agent for you. We could do it for you straight away, but that's my name going on that product, and that's not what I want to put my name to. So yeah, man, we're just upfront with people on that end, and we do everything we can to get access to as much property that gives us access to so much that we can pick and choose the greatest deals. So I think also you have to become an absolute expert in a market. So you can't just go to a course or go read a magazine or an article or some report or something and think, oh yeah, well this is a great place to buy. I'll go and buy there. I had a strategy with a client this week, and they had just bought 2 properties themselves just before they signed on with us. They'd bought 2 properties themselves because they'd done some course and thought they knew how to buy. We did when I did the strategy for them, I was looking at the prices and I was like, these must be 4x2s. They're still pretty exy, but they must be 4-bed, 2-baths in this area. We're running through the strategy and they're 3-bed, 1-bath. And I'm like, that's 50 to 100 grand more than what we probably would pay in these 2 areas for this style of deal. But out there trying to source it themselves in the marketplace, they're paying top end because they're getting them on market. One of them, they're like, we took it out pre-auction. They thought they got a good deal because they took it out pre-auction. No one sells pre-auction unless they think they're going to get above auction price at the thing. So there's all these people out there overpaying from that end. And it's one of these things, man, you have to understand market value intimately. You have to be willing to bin a majority of deals and then get access to 95% of property that others don't. And I think that's where our strongest numbers and how we can still really source deals at a great price and still do the right things by our clients really comes down to those factors. We know intimately what market value is, even though markets are moving rapidly, which can be hard. There's multiple layers of valuations that we do internally within the business as well before it goes to a client. So and then obviously getting access to the property.
So the question for me then is that why are people selling properties via you to your clients cheaper than what is market value?
And this is where it comes back to so much of what we do gets binned, or so much of what comes to us gets binned, because it's finding those anomalies, right? Or the ones that are outside the norm. So people that are under a pressured situation that you sell quickly, agents that are a little bit out of touch with the market, they're not selling huge volume, so they don't understand what it is, and they take in the quick and easy option of selling off market. A lot of sellers might only think they're missing, or they might even think they're selling it at market value, right? Because they may see sales, something that's sold or went under, or something is just sold at, let's say, 500 grand, but it might have sold 2 months ago and then went through, 6 to 8 weeks settlement process before it sold. In that 2 months, if that's the data they're looking at, everything's clearing and selling then, and half of it's contact agent, half of it's or say a third of it's contact agent, a third of it's off market, and then a third of they actually see the sales prices. That's where they might think it sits, but there's a delay, there's a lag there, right? There's always a lag from that side of things. So the especially the uneducated agents, that's where you can really kind of cut in with a few of these things, and lazy agents, that's a big thing. So, but it all comes down to, I won't go too much into kind of the full secret sources, but it's getting access to that stuff effectively before it hits the market. Man, for the last 18 months, there's only been 1 month that we've dropped below 90% off market deals in the last 18 months.
Pre-platform.
Yeah.
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 Really, it's that high?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I literally get the because I'll.
That's
I'll
hard
look
to
at
do,
those.
right? Like,
It is.
and so the point is that if people are paying for properties in a particular market, it's
Yep.
relevant where it is for what it is, and if there's more buyers and sellers,
Yep.
or if there's more buyers agents operating in that space,
Yep.
it's going to increase values.
Yeah.
Right. It's and
course.
to a point where that market becomes not a viable investment anymore.
Yeah.
So the secret is understanding when you shouldn't be buying in a place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should know that before you even get in.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things. One final note, I guess, on what you asked before about for us, like we'll close off calendars, like booking calendars, right? If I think we're getting full or if it looks like we're getting full, I think we were chatting about this before we came in. I won Buyers Agent of the Year on 29th of Feb, and on the 1st of March, we closed the calendars for a full month because we had enough in there at the time. It was like, well, if we take on more, we're going to take on more than we can actually deliver on. We closed them off for a
That's
while.
a mature way to do it because you've got to protect the integrity of the service that you're offering.
Have to protect the brand.
So you say it takes time if someone wants to use you guys. Like, how long does it take? Like,
it all depends on the deal. So we have multiple deal types that we
so
source
price
people.
points and everything.
Okay. And we have multiple things. So we'll have what we call trademark deals, right? What APS is known for. It's typically 20 to 25 grand plus below market value on a deal. They obviously take time in the current market to source. Depending on the budget, it might be 8 to 10 weeks for that. If it's super cheap, it might be 12 weeks because there aren't that many low end markets anymore. But then we have what we call our foundational deals these days, right? And so there might be people who are wanting to get in a bit quick, maybe don't want to wait as long, and they're typically like 10 to 15 grand below market value, and they might take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, market dependent, budget dependent. So yeah, man, it really depends on what people come in asking for, but. So often, like I see people posting this these days of like you can't buy below market value. Market value is what you pay for a property. It's a load of crap. Like 100% you still can. It just takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
And mate, that's what we build our whole reputation, our name off. So I'm not going to change it and go, yeah, no worries. Now we'll just take on 100 clients at market value or whatever. That's what we're not what we're known for.
So this question is juice worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
How many people want to use you on the basis of I can get it a little bit? Because you've got to pay a fee for a buyer's agent,
course,
right? Because sometimes it can net out. The fee will be, what the
discount is.
Well, the discount is, right? So I think the buyer's agent sector and people that use buyer's agents need to be very, very clear around what a buyer's agent does. That's just one small bit of it.
Yep.
Was I able to get the property a little bit cheaper than what the market? If it was on the open market, maybe. But what about everything else? Which doesn't get spoken about a lot. Like, that's fine if you know where you guys are buying.
Yeah.
How do you find out where you guys are buying and why you're buying there? That's, I would argue, probably a lot more valuable than potentially saving 15 grand, 20 grand on the purchase price.
Yeah.
Because if you save 15 or 20 grand on the purchase price in a dud market, who cares? You've locked your money up for a period of time that's not working for you elsewhere.
Yeah.
If you pay market rate in an area and you're paying for the recommendations on where to buy, you're going to make a lot more than 15 or 20 grand, right?
Location will do 80, 90% of the heavy lifting of the portfolio. Buying at the right price will do the extra 10 to 20, and it will really help you in that initial phase. But man, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's like that example I gave before of like where we saw market value on that deal that sold at like nearly 600 or whatever it was that client bought before they engaged with us. We wouldn't have seen market value at that. It was like someone overpaid, you know what I mean? Like they overpaid for it. And so we'll gauge on where we believe market value is, but in all these rising markets, it's always outpacing it. So, but it's genuinely where we see it, where we see market value. And the cool thing is at the moment, being in the right markets that are growing rapidly as well, they get the bonus of the growth super quickly.
How do you say to someone you've overpaid on that?
I don't tell them.
No.
You can't tell them, man. Like it's it's in that sense, like if they've just bought it as well, like,
do you just sit there and just go, okay, well, let's move on?
Yeah, I just talk about strategy of what we're going to do now. Yeah. It's one of those things, mate. It's just like, you're not going to slap them in the face with that. It's not the right thing to do.
It's not cool.
Nah.
Because, and this comes back to education.
Yeah.
Right? The better educated they are, the better you can do as your job as a property investor to interrogate and second guess.
I think this is a big thing with out there trying to source yourself at the moment. You have to be a market expert. You can't just read a report and go, I'm going to go buy here and then just try and buy a couple of properties and land on something. Like it takes time to understand. You might get lucky, but the ultimate side of it is like, there's always different pockets in an area or in a suburb, and most people that know market value properly, whether that's even just local owner occupiers that want to buy in that area, so they'll pay a premium for it. You know what I mean? Like this is, there's so many intricacies to understanding market value and knowing what you should pay somewhere. It just takes time. You can definitely do it yourself. If you allocated like 6 months to properly research and learn a market properly, because that's how long it takes literally to learn something properly from that perspective.
Well, you need to, I don't know how many local area LGAs are, local government areas, that's like 10 plus thousand,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if you want to start investing in property, sit there and go, all right, I'm going to be a property investor. You've got to, the first thing, it's not like whether or not you're buying a thing under market value. That's like so far down the order. It's about where do you actually invest? And that is the key thing. And tough to get right unless you're doing it as a full-time job. That said,
the game's changed, but as well.
Yeah.
It's not like when I was, and I fully wholeheartedly like say this when people ask me as well, like, would you have used a BA when you started? And if I could have, I don't know, this might sound a bit vain, but if I could use myself in the sense of where what I know that I can do for people, I definitely would have. But because I look at it now, and again, go back 4 or 5 years ago, is a very different market. Like having a crack at sourcing yourself, 100%. Like the opportunity's there. But these days, like if you don't have those connections, how do you get access to the off markets? And if you're not buying off market, you're paying at, or you're buying with the masses. So you're paying that full retail.
Is it harder today to buy property than what it was a decade ago?
100%.
But why is that? Is that because people are more informed?
It's a stock deficit. So it's a stock deficit. There's still as many buyers, if not more, but there's a third of the properties.
Yeah.
There's a report on, I can't remember exactly what it is. It could be SQM Research. Big Louis Christopher, he's got the vacancy rates one. He's got one on stock on market as well.
Yeah.
You have a look at the last like 10 years and where we're sitting right now. Like it is ridiculous deficit to where we've been in the last like 10 to 20 years. When you combine that with so many people now trying to buy and so many fewer homes being built, so much fewer land and apartments and everything coming to market as well. We're just in this massive stock deficit, but the same amount, if not more, people trying to buy. It's 100% harder, than it was when I was building.
So I want to chat to you about that. Let's go to a quick. Welcome back, Phil Tarrant from Smart Property Investment with Sam Gordon from Australian Property Scout. So before the break, we're saying it's harder to buy property today than what it was 10 years ago. And your point is that there's less properties available.
A lot less stock, yeah.
And I would say, therefore, proportionally less great properties available, right?
I would agree, yeah, for sure.
Even though people now, a decade on, and I think, I first used a buyer's agent, buying probably 12 years ago or so, right?
Yeah.
People are so much more educated. There's
Than
so
you?
much more. No. Most people are smarter than me, I'll tell you that. But people are so much more educated now about how to, like, when I started buying property, there's no podcast or anything. We had a bit of magazine and whatnot.
I used to read it.
I think Jan Summers, was it? Had a famous book. There was so little information. The only way you get info was to go to an expo or a session and get sold something, right?
Yeah.
Like so.
Seminar, the properties at the back of the room.
Yeah. So, and you've been to those, and we spoke about them in the past. But information is so much more democratized and available to everyone, right? So therefore, more people are wanting and understand what constitutes a good investment, right?
Yep.
So it just extrapolates or puts layers of making it harder and harder to buy property. Now, is it a good thing that there is less stock on market today than what it was back then? Do you see that changing? And how much of it, and this is the key point, is how much of it is people just not wanting to sell versus there's just not enough properties out there? And this sort of takes us to this housing crisis situation we're in right now, which is obviously, you pick up the paper and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's hard to develop property at the moment. It's just not economical for most developers, and a lot of developers and builders are going bust, right?
Yeah.
So is that good for property investors? That's the first question.
If you already own property,
Yeah.
especially in the right areas, it's very, very good. Obviously, there's been a huge amount of growth the last few years, which has been excellent for most people's portfolios. They're pulling out cash, pulling out equity, and they're able to go again and buy again. Getting into the market is a lot more difficult. So that's kind of the catch-22. If you already own property, it's excellent. If you're trying to get in now, it's harder. But does it mean you shouldn't get in now? No, it's definitely still a great time to invest. But it's just being very selective with where you're kind of putting your money, and also being not being silly with, oh, well, I just need to buy something because it's a great time to buy, so I'm just going to go and buy anything. You still need to be educated around it. You still need to make wise decisions in terms of where you're buying. There's a few areas getting a lot further through their cycles now that I'd be very wary of buying in. But no, it's good news. I think we've still got a few solid years of like proper like super boom conditions for the next couple of years in specific areas and regions.
Purely because there's not enough stock on market, and that's what's driving demand.
And that's not changing because like the other, to answer the other question you said of like, when's this going to change? It's realistically the build shortage and the build deficit is not going to solve itself anytime soon. Yes, they could wean off the population growth a little bit, but ultimately we've had 2 record back-to-back years of population growth. There isn't enough houses for them. They're still going to push high population growth even if they do reduce it a bit. But man, we're nowhere near building enough houses for what we need. We've got builders going over left, right, and center, and like it's obviously a bad thing for that side of the industry, but as property investors, that's only a good thing, because if we're not delivering enough properties, it's only going to cause one thing for values and for rents, which is increased pressure and increased prices, which is exactly what we want, obviously, as property investors.
Well, the biggest issue is, property prices are driven by supply and demand. So the government is trying to shape the demand side at the moment, because I think we've had back a record immigration. I think they're halving it for next year or whatever.
Yep.
And the budget and all that sort of stuff, which is underway right now. I see also they're sort of saying, hey, universities, stop your over-reliance on overseas students.
Yep.
And I think maybe 50%, about half of all migrants that come in Australia in this current period were students.
Is that right?
Right, yeah.
That's crazy.
It's huge. And I saw some stat, I think it was University of Sydney or whatever, 48% of their students are international.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So hence the reason why people are complaining about immigration making housing unaffordable, right? Because there's just so they're going, oh, do you know what we'll do? We'll fix the demand side of things and cut that, right? Fair enough. They're making that decision rather than really looking at strategically changing the supply side of things. What they need to be doing, because if you curb migration, that means you curb, job growth, you curb building the coffers of the respective state, federal and local governments, right? Because these people, a growing population, increase revenue, right?
100%.
So you don't really want to stop that. You really want to fix the actual demand side, right? So to your point, if you're currently a property investor, happy days.
Yeah.
Happy days. And even if they curb inflation by a half, they're still not building enough properties. The housing crisis is that we're not building enough houses.
Yep.
The housing crisis, the issue is not everyone in the future is going to be able to live in, a single dwelling house in a suburbs, right? Like, but we've got to completely change how we do it. Like, got to get used to having high density sort of, all that sort of stuff, right? And none of that's going to happen. None of that's going to happen at any point. So I haven't seen any politician tell me how they're going to fix this yet.
They bring out the idea of 1.2 million homes in the next 5 years, right? Which is whatever it is, 240,000 a year, but no clear way of how we're actually going to deliver them when more building companies are going under, labor prices increasing, material prices still increasing, more and more builders going under. Like, it's like, okay, so how is this actually going to be delivered? And then in the first full year since they launched that, we're about 70 to 80,000 homes in deficit, whatever the exact number is, that were in deficit of the first year target. That's the first year, with more and more builders going under. Where is it going to be in year 2, 3, 4?
So you got to make that up and deliver what you're saying the year before. It's
impossible. It's not going to happen. There's no way it's going to happen.
I don't know what the future looks like. Like, it's really sad. It's really, really sad that the basic tenet of providing houses for people to live will curb the economic prosperity of Australia moving forward. That's a bit sad.
I think the fact that they're not placing actual real emphasis on who they're bringing into the country with the visas and everything. I can understand it in the first year, you know what I mean? Get the hospitalities coffers back, because they lost so many workers, the backpackers.
Skilled migrant visas are tiny. It's not 5% of all. It's tiny.
And that's what I'm saying. So the student side of things just eats up all the housing, right? Yeah. And then I understand the hospitality and let backpackers back in, all the things so people can start running the cafes. But that was in year one. That was last year. In the year before. That's already kind of been solved from that end. They should be targeting the skilled migrant side of things. They're actually going to bring, because that'll obviously help lower the labour costs as well when more and more people come in.
Well, I think that what they're going to do moving forward, and I'm sort of reading the tea leaves, I reckon international, it's sort of connected with property, right?
Yeah.
I reckon I go, international students are cool and we will provide them university places.
Yep.
Because the thing is that there's a lot of rorts happening in student visas and stuff, right? There's a lot of dodgy, like colleges doing really dodgy courses, and it's really a backdoor for people to try and come to Australia to work, right? And the government's got to be responsible for sorting this out, right? Because it has huge implications on housing and stuff, right? But I reckon where this will go will be international students are cool, and the government will green light universities continue to accept if it's courses, which is going to be some benefit for Australia moving forward.
Yeah, right.
Right. It's all the other stuff. And they're talking about how the quality of there's some universities in Australia do their courses in Mandarin.
Yeah, right. Really?
So, it happens, right? So the argument it's diluting the experience for Australia, inverted commas, students, because it's been compromised the fact that nearly half of the people are international students, right? Like it's massive. So
it's nuts.
I'm all for it. I think it's great for universities. Universities need to raise money to invest in research, right?
Yeah.
But
and the government makes a fortune out of it.
The government makes a fortune out of it. Everyone benefits from it.
That's why we
right?
understand why they're doing it. But
everyone benefits from it. But the courses available to international students will be regulated. So it's stuff that will benefit Australia moving forward.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's smart policy. Bring people in to teach them how to be nurses or aged care nurses, right?
Yep.
Because guess what? You educate them here. You want a job? No worries. No worries at all. Contribute, right?
Yep.
They're paying their taxes. They're doing all that stuff. They're raising families, helping that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But getting international students here to do degrees, which has no relevance at all for us, is bonkers
Doesn't
and
make
madness.
sense, yeah. I'm with you.
But this all fuels the housing issue. Now,
Yeah.
this is a podcast for property investors. So
here we are talking about university courses in Mandarin.
but here you go,
It's all
right?
related,
But
yeah.
it's all related, right?
Yep.
Because if you own property, these people need to live somewhere.
Yep.
Students. It doesn't matter where they're from. It's irrelevant. I've been an international student in a whole bunch of different places in the world. It's cool. I like it. I think it's good. But if you're a property investor, it's really, really hard. It comes back to the earlier point we're talking about. What actually constitutes a great deal? Like, how did you chase student areas for your... No, you don't go there?
Nah.
So, because a lot of people go, I
Yeah.
need to invest in Alexandria because that's where all the students live that go to University of New South Wales or Sydney.
I looked into it. The biggest issue when I was obviously doing the research is like pretty much all of it is units and apartment sort of style accommodation. Yeah. And I'm just not a believer in it. Like it has its day at certain times.
But the point is, though, is that not all Australians going to be like the future of
100%.
Australia is not houses,
Yeah.
for growing population and but this is the issue. We need to build these dwellings, right? People think a dwelling is a 4-bedroom McMansion in the ponds, right? And that's where a lot of people choose to live, right?
Yeah.
But that's not. That's a very that's part of the view for the future of Australia.
Yeah.
But it's high-rise accommodation that a lot of people don't want to live in.
Yeah, I get you.
But that's reality.
Yeah.
But you don't like apartments and units.
Man, I think the shift came so quickly when it actually did eat that stock up. It was almost like because no one, or like a majority of people didn't really know the population growth numbers until they came out. So in March last year, they were the record at 454,000, right? We didn't hear about it until September of last year. By that time, they'd already flooded back in and eaten up all that sort of accommodation on that front anyway, which had boosted the rents because the vacancy rates were huge and then contracted down when obviously they all came back in.
During COVID.
Oh, mate, it was crazy. Like you look at like Sydney and all the rest of it, like during COVID, vacancy rate went to like 10% in the CBD and like those sorts of regions around the unis because no one was there. Like that typical product that they wanted. These guys weren't there to eat it up. So, man, I think by the time that sort of switch had come back in, that's why when we looked at it, I was like, it just doesn't make sense because it already had that spike back. It wasn't like you kind of buying before the curve and then it went. And yeah, man, like unless there's like a really, really clear reason why to get into it and you're getting in super early, for me, I'm just not a fan of the apartments side of things. It's the strata just eats way too much into the profitability side unless you can see a significant upside in a very short amount of time. And that's the sort of thing I want to hold on to for the long term.
But what they're saying now is that in capital cities, units will grow faster than houses.
Yeah, but by how much? And I know that's the argument. And I think in the first quarter of this year, they outperformed, but it was by like 0.5%. It's like, okay, but when you factor the strata in there and all the rest of sort of stuff, like, are you in front or are you behind? You got an asset you can't properly control either. So units have their place at different times, and I'm not fully against them. Like sometimes we bought ones with extremely low strata, and it was at a massive discount, so it made sense to actually buy it.
Yeah.
But then, for the most part, the mainstream sort of style product that this is, it just doesn't tick the boxes in my mind from an investment perspective. I think there's better opportunities out there. And yeah, okay, in the capital cities, the units will probably outperform the houses because during COVID, the houses outperformed the units. But are there better regional locations that will outperform the capital city units and have better cash flows and have more land content and all the rest of it as well?
So this brings us back to the point around the buyer's agent's job isn't to try and save you $10,000 on. I got it $10,000 cheaper than what it would have paid if it was in the open market. I mean, it really becomes irrelevant in many ways.
To an extent, I'm a firm believer you should still be getting a discount. I don't believe you should pay market value.
By the way, I want to discount everything I buy.
If you buy, like if you're going through a buyer's agent, my honest opinion, but that's because we still stick by this. We haven't changed our tune. It's that if you're paying someone for a service in the buyer's agency space, you should be getting a discount. And the discount should be based off proper valuation. Yeah, obviously not paying for a valuer, but paying for a valuation or whatever, but actually having it expertly valued and still getting a discount on that front. Man, I still think every deal should have that because, man, if you're paying that amount of money for it, I honestly believe that should be part of the service, non-negotiable in my mind.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show that it's getting harder to find
definitely
good deals.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been doing this now for not buyer's agency, but I've been investing for 15 years. I've never seen it as hard as it is right now. I'll be the first one to say that. Like it is, I've never seen stock this tight, and so many like both buyer's agents and investors out there willing to overpay for stuff just to secure something. It is the hardest.
We call that
ever
stupid
been.
money. We call that
dumb money.
Dumb money. That's very good. Dumb money. And so to the point then, it's not going to be fixed at any point in time. Like so, we can tinker with the demand side of things, and if you say that there's 500,000 migrants coming to the country last year, was it thereabouts? I think that got my numbers right. If you halve that, there's still a lot of people,
still heaps,
right?
Yeah,
that's still more than what we're providing for.
Yeah.
Not to count, natural
and trying to catch up as well. Trying to catch up,
natural population growth, right? Like.
But,
believe it or not, we still make more people every year than people that die.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think it was something like I think this year was 100 because last year was 454,000 for new migrants coming into international migrants, and I think this year was like 550. I'm pretty sure it was.
I think you're about right.
Plus about 120,000 natural
net positive.
Just internally, internal migration of births in front of death side of things. So it's over 650, going pretty close to 700,000 people increase in the last 12 months. It's a pretty big number.
And the average household size now is like 2 point something.
Yeah, 2.2 or 2.4 or something. Yeah, it's
okay.
tiny.
So just on that basis, then you needed 300 odd thousand.
Yeah, and we did I think 130,000.
Yeah. And I was chatting with someone over the weekend. I won't tell you who it was, but
God, man, it's a safe space.
But pretty much just going. And it's budget week, right? You hear the stuff coming out. Oh, we're going to put, we're going to. There's 3 million Australians with HECS debts. We're going to give them like $1,500. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. 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 Look at all this stuff, right? Yeah. All around the fringes, right? Yeah. I would argue that this is outside of maybe the strategic position of Australia in the world today, and sort of outside of that, as a nation, whole of nation focus, you got to argue that fixing this housing issue probably is the most important thing.
It's probably
right?
the top.
Come on, right? It's top three, right? I'd say defence and security. I would say housing issues, and I would say probably also the welfare system in Australia, which I think is very good, right? Like NDIS and supporting people who aren't able to maybe, subscribe into how most Australians work. I think that's a really, really important social endeavour for Australia. They're your top three, right?
But as of right now, what's the most economic influence, that's having the biggest issue is the housing crisis.
Yeah. I'd say housing crisis. Like that, you got to fix that.
Yeah. 100%.
It needs fixing because everything else will come from it. If property is really, really expensive and people can't afford it, or they're spending all the money on rent, that's a problem.
Yes.
And that just cascades all the way down through. And yes, they're trying to curb inflation. I don't know. I don't know who's sitting there going, we should actually be concentrating on this. Don't worry about all the other stuff. Don't worry about the other stuff.
Yeah.
But It's not happening,
I
mate.
think the funny thing to look at when we look at those inflation numbers that came out a few weeks ago, whenever it came out, it was interesting to note that like discretionary spending is already through the floor. Like we're pretty much
retail numbers down.
Yeah, it's the lowest numbers in like 10 years, right, for discretionary. And yet that these fixed costs that we can't really control, like your insurances and things like that, rents, they're all increasing. That's what's keeping inflation high. And I think it's just funny of like people talking about the extra interest rate increases potentially. It's like people already aren't spending. You know what I mean? It's like these fixed costs that people got. Like it's like rent. It's like, no worries, well, here's a kick in the guts. Let's put it up again. And then the property investors obviously pass it on because they're copying it too.
Yeah, and the reason why rent's going up is because people got to pay their mortgages,
100%.
right? Why do people need to?
4.25% interest rate increases in 2 years. Like,
there you go, right? And we're still getting gouged at the pump.
Yeah.
You know, mate, Aussies, you know.
Mate, that was the most ochre thing you've ever said to me.
Mate, they're getting gouged at the pumps. But you think about it, right? The government, you know, budget week, sprouting this idea they've got to be in surplus, right? Yeah. If they didn't tax Australians on the key three areas where it's really hitting the most, and one of them really contributing to inflation, petrol, their smokes, right, and their booze.
Yeah, right.
Mate, the government makes so much money out of those things. That's what Aussies want. So they want to have a smoke. Probably you shouldn't smoke.
Down at the pub, smack a few beers.
You want
Davos.
You want a lungy and you want a schooner and you want to drive around, right? Hey, we're getting hammered all over the joint with this stuff, right? Like, and a lot of part of it's fueling inflation, right?
Yeah, of course.
You know, so all that money that the government is getting, they should be putting more of it to fixing this housing problem.
Yeah, man.
Right?
I'm with you.
But the irony of that is that property investors are benefiting from it. So you've got to be comfortable with that as a property investor, right? It's because what you're doing, and the argument for it is you're contributing to providing accommodation to people. And more importantly, you're contributing to your long-term wealth creation, which means that you should be able to be a self-funded retiree.
Yep.
We need
which
to be
will
creating
benefit the country, obviously in the long term, like
absolutely,
100%. Yep.
Absolutely, that is the key outcome.
Yeah,
people talk about wealth creation, and guess what? As a property investor, they don't miss you with taxes. You get taxed all the way along.
You get smashed.
You get taxed all the way along. Even if you're demonised, you're demonised by being a property investor, by having your hands, you're the pickpocket of the Australian economy because you're getting all these benefits through negative gearing, right? You're building wealth, so you contribute in many different ways, and therefore you'll be a self-funded retiree. Yeah. That's the game. And guess what? Your retirement might be better than people who haven't done that. So what?
Yeah. You've earned the right
Take action. You've earned the right to do it.
Yeah.
And it's available to most people.
Yeah, man, I'm with you 100%. It's a funny thing how much we get slammed for it because we're also a minority in the country. But like if we weren't there, okay, what's the percentage of public housing? It's like, I don't think it's 2%. It's tiny.
The government can't even work out how to increase the supply in non-public housing.
I know, man.
How are they going to become a property developer themselves?
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Like, it's ridiculous, man. And like they're putting more and more of these things in there to make it harder. And then, like you said, demonize the whole way through. But it's like, for one, if no one had retired themselves through property, especially in Australia where it's such a massive asset that we do build wealth in, okay, so what's the game plan? You're just going to pension for everyone? And man, this is the thing I just look at. It is what it is. I came to terms with it a long time ago. Like it's just, mate, it's my wealth.
Yeah, you don't go to bed feeling dirty because no.
Man, I'm doing the work. Like it's as simple as that. I understand people who are in an unfortunate position and they're struggling to find their way out, sort of thing. But man, anyone can change. It took me 3 years to have my first deposit, making $38,000 a year. You know what I mean? Like anyone can do it when they if they really set their minds to it. So it's hard, but at the end of the day, if this is the vehicle that you want to implement to actually get out of it, anyone can do it. It's just a lot more sacrifice than a lot of people want to take on.
And I'm sort of back to those three key things I said most important. One's the sort of welfare, social issues, right? And I'm always the first to disconnect, the responsibilities of government to provide housing for people, community-based housing or lower income housing for people who need it. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
All for that.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah.
It's everything else, which is fair game, right? Like seriously, it's fair game. It's you get if you've got 2 feet and a heartbeat and you've got a job and you want to leverage all that is great about living in Australia, you can take control of this stuff. Might be hard. You might have to give up stuff. Guess what? You might have to forego the satisfaction of X, Y, Z on buying the things that you want, but you can do it. You're a product of that.
Yeah,
absolutely, you're a product of that.
Yeah.
So get involved. But we've got a favourable audience here. They're probably sitting there just going, and belly bumping and high fiving and stuff like these guys at your thing the other day. But But so there's the challenge. You got to fix it.
Yeah.
Fix a bit because
You're not going to, this is a big thing, but you're not going to, you can't change everyone. But I think this is the thing. People that take the action and take the action, actually get the results. By the time they get to the end of it, or even during the process of it, they're going to realize they've got nothing to be sorry about because they're pushing hard to change their futures.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. You can't control someone else's future. You can obviously try and, push a potty onto them, have a listen to this, see if you, change the mindset around these things. But ultimately, you got to change your own future. No one else is going to do it for you.
no one's going to do it for you. And it comes down to how well, for property investors, you maneuver, socialise, orientate yourself with the market to do what you knew to do better. Welcome back, Phil Tarrant, chatting with Sam. I never called you Sammy. I don't like it.
Yeah, I Sammy Gordon.
I refuse to do it.
Yeah. It's the generation you're in, bud.
Mate, you're getting old.
I am getting old.
Yeah, I'm an Xer, right? What are you? You're a Y. You're not millennial.
I think I'm a Y.
Yeah, mate, Ys are old now.
No, because I'm born in 90, so I don't know what I am.
You're not
the
the cool kids on the block anymore.
I'm the last year that also joins Morgs. That's my partner's year, and she's 27, and I'm 34. So I'm in the same bracket as her, but I'm in the first and she's in the last.
Mate, newsflash, 34 is not young. Old.
I feel good.
Mate.
I feel great.
It's because you've got a carnivore diet. Did you stick to that pretty well?
Pretty good, man. Yeah. You have your little
Does someone
blowouts.
cook you a steak every night? Like you've probably got a private chef or something
I
like that.
cook my own steaks. I've got this mad butcher. I live in Palm Beach up in Queensland, and there's this mad butcher just down on the corner. Mate, I go in there. I get my Scotchies every
day.
night. Yeah. I'll buy them every couple of days or whatever to get me through.
Scotch fillet.
I love my Scotchies.
One Scotch fillet? You must be two.
Nah, normally smack a double. Yeah.
Two Scotch fillets.
Yeah, about 600-700 grams of steak. It's good, mate. I feel great on it. It's I'm terrible for. I'm a snack fiend, man. Like I'll smash everything. So for me, I like to look good. I like to feel good. So I like to train all the time. And yeah, when you're putting crap in your body, you feel like crap. So it's like you don't run the Ferrari on water or sewage or whatever. You put the good stuff in. So man, I try and run myself on as clean. And it's crazy how clean you feel, how good you feel on it. It's nuts.
Hard. It's a bit easier when you're a bit younger. When your life gets a bit more complicated, it gets harder to.
You know what's surprising?
That sounds like an excuse.
I find it easier. Because, I work anywhere between 10 to 15 hours a day, right? When I'm in proper work mode, I'll work that much every day. And I find it easier because I don't need when you're on a carb, this is so funny we've turned into this, but when you're on a carb diet, carbs, it's almost like carbs crave carbs. So you're always hungry. Yeah. When you're on carnivore, man, I smack a protein shake in the morning. With literally no carbs in it and a bit of MCT, so I get the fats in it. But then I have nothing else, and around about 2 o'clock, I'll go smash 4-6 eggs and half a kilo of bacon, and then I'll smash a steak at night. I'm never hungry outside of those times. Yeah, it's weird. Whereas I was always hungry all the time.
Yeah, I love carbs, so I know I try and avoid them purely because it's.
I'll have a blowout every few weeks or whatever, and you have a nice weekend.
Mate, I had for some reason I still end up eating student meals. Right? I had a baked potato with baked beans on it last night for dinner with some cheese.
Mate, it sounds like a Jetstar all-inclusive flight meal. That one.
I can't, mate. I can do potato.
What was that? A baked potato with baked beans.
A couple of baked potatoes.
Yeah.
With baked beans on it and a bit of cheese. It's a proper student
He's
meal.
grafted his way up, people. He has grafted. If that's what you,
I can do potato 100 ways. I was a student for a long time with no money.
Oh, mate, that's classic.
What I can do with potato, but I try and avoid that personally. Much like I try and avoid investing in units, right?
There you go.
You've got to get that. You got to. Well, no, this is the point, right? You got to fuel your portfolio. Use it as a metaphor. Yeah. Fuel your portfolio with the right inputs in order to get the right output.
Definitely.
Much like you fuel your body with the right inputs to get the right output, right?
Yeah.
High performance, you look good. I know you're probably quite vain, wearing the right clothes, that sort of stuff. But same but different, right? So you got to fuel your portfolio with the right stuff. So this is the point around building your portfolio. Most people are fixated on what they put in and when, rather than what they take out and when.
Yeah.
Because I guess your job and that of your team is helping people identify the right assets to put into their portfolio. Yeah. But the exit is just as important as the entry.
100%.
It gets forgotten.
Yeah. Oh, mate, all the time. And I think the reason it gets forgotten is because so many experts out there in the marketplace, that they bang on, they harp on that you should never sell. And I am a firm believer that is a load of crap. Yeah. Ultimately, if you want to retire from property, you don't retire from property from selling, it's from holding onto a $2 million asset that's got a 3% yield, and there's no cash flow. You know what I mean, on an asset like that. So why wouldn't you take the profits you've made on something like that and pay off a high net cash flow deal and instead like trade, all right, we made the growth out of this thing. That's what it was in the portfolio for. Market's at its peak, you sell it off, you bank the profit, you move it on. Whether you bank the profit and you get the debt back and you move it into other properties and you keep building, or like, is that at the point you are in your portfolio, or are we debt reducing high net cash flow deals and then paying those off or getting them to a very low debt level? So now we have a higher net cash flow return from maybe something that's at the same value or even potentially significantly less, but yielding a lot higher from that perspective. And man, I think it's one of the biggest mistakes people make. And my honest opinion, and I have no issue saying this, anyone that says you should buy and never sell has never retired from property. It's as simple as that. And in my opinion, they're not an expert, because you cannot get to retirement hanging on. You know the old thing where you buy 10, you sell, you carry them through a peak, you sell half, you pay the other half off. If they're single key investments or they're just like a stock standard home with an average yield, it's not even that much. You might have 5 properties owned outright. It's not even that much. They have to pay off the correct deals. And so often you could own, say, 3 high yielding deals that'll give you the same as those 5 or 6 lower yielding from that side. So anyone that's banging on about that, they haven't gotten to retirement. They haven't retired through property, because it has to formulate part of the strategy. There's no point hanging on to them from that perspective. It just doesn't make sense.
So if you said, I don't want to work anymore, and you wanted to retire debt, have you done the math on saying, I sell these, have no debt, I'll have an income, that's enough?
I've built out my entire portfolio with this in complete philosophy.
So you could do that today, or you'd need to wait a little bit longer?
It depends on what the target is. But yeah, I could definitely sell down and pay out, and it would be very, very healthy.
Yeah,
very healthy.
You'd be okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's one of these things. If I held everything
You'd stake
now,
money.
Mate, good stakes.
Good stake money.
I'd still buy the same stakes.
High stakes. Yeah.
But it's one of these things of just like, the portfolio is still good because I've still built a lot of cash flow out in the portfolio. So it's still very, very strong. But the balance is so important. And yeah, the idea of, you use this example, right? Like, do you remember in like, you probably were investing during this time. 2000 to 2003, Sydney had its first boom, right? Doubled. And then between 2003 and 2013, Sydney did nothing.
Yeah.
Now, if your borrowing was capped, right, and you just held that property through the whole period and you couldn't buy anything else because you just wanted to hang on to that Sydney property, you've missed Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, Hobart, and how many other regional locations that doubled or more during 2003 to 2013. A lot of them doubled in 2004 to 2007, or did 120, 150% growth, depending on the city, depending on the location. If you hadn't sold during that period, and because the idea is, you just refinance equity and you use it from that end. But like, servicing isn't unlimited. Like, you need borrowing back at some point. And like, the idea of just hanging on forever, but even just hanging on to it, if it's not going to do anything, inflation is going to eat out your profit during that whole period. Yeah. So I'm just not a believer. It just doesn't make sense. Look at the numbers. Look at what inflation will do to your profit over the next 10 years. You sold out, invested into those other markets, doubled your money there, sold out of those, went back to Sydney in 2011, 2012, bought at the bottom when no one else was around. And the market was dead. Like, the fact that people don't see the logic in that, and these experts out there saying you never sell, like, I look at them and I just say, it just doesn't make sense. They haven't done it. It's as simple as that. They haven't done it.
Are you still trading?
Trading
your portfolio?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I probably have got, there's a couple of markets that I specifically own properties in that I believe probably in the next, between 12 and 24 months will probably go pretty close to a peak. I probably have some, probably circa 12 to 15 properties that I'll sell down in that next period.
Can you tell us where they would be?
No, not yet.
But are you not buying there, eh? Or you might be.
There's some cash flow strategies that still make sense in those areas, and still some like renovators that we're still picking up through there. Because mate, and some of those areas we're talking like 18 to 24 months. That's still a lot of run, that's potentially left in a market. Yeah. So, and also there's different factors that we don't know are going to come in the next 12 to 24 months. When interest rates come back down, could bring it forward or could push it out in terms of that time frame as well. So it's one of these things, mate, that's just like, it's not an exact science in terms of just like, it's like a 10, 20, 30 year game plan. There's so many variables and so many moving pieces that happen the whole way through it. So yeah, man, that's the way that I look at it from that perspective. Is always staying fluid with the game plan with that. But yeah, when the time's right to sell those, I'll be selling those off because they've done what they needed to do. I can't force any levers to turn them into cash flow deals.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I'll maximize the investment and then exit, bank the profit, move on.
Fair enough. Happy days.
Happy days, mate. You sold a few off. The
I've
last
sold
couple of
some.
years.
Yeah.
I remember we
sold,
chatted about it like a while ago.
It was in Sydney because they'd done their run, right? They'd done their run.
I don't know about your stuff. Most of the stuff I bought in Sydney around that sort of time frame, 12, 13, 14, doubled twice.
Yeah.
Doubled twice.
You still hold a lot of it, or you sold some
the
of it?
cash flow stuff I hold, the other stuff I've sold.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, man, you bank the profit, you pay the other one out entirely. Like you're getting some of those cash flow deals I've got are between $1,000 and $1,500 a week. It's just no debt on it.
Yeah, the smart property portfolio. One of the things that hasn't really it's been an expensive portfolio to hold.
Yeah.
Trust structures and all this sort of stuff. Great capital growth.
Yeah.
But yeah, now, it got to a really nice sort of neutralish point.
Yeah.
And then interest rates started going up again, right?
Yeah.
And
So you were neutral before rates went up.
it wasn't costing as much as
Okay.
traditionally it costs to hold, but it's just gone. And we just refinanced some stuff, right? Pulled some dough out of it.
Yeah. Because if you had a fair few million there as well, if interest rates go up 4.25%.
4.25. Yeah. So I can't remember how much debt was in there. $5 million. I can't remember.
So when you think about that, right? Use that example there. If you'd held that, that's costing you $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
Because debt for every million, if it goes up by 4.25%, it's costing you $42.5 grand.
Yeah.
You got $5 million worth of debt. You're talking about over 200, 210, 15,000, whatever
And
it is.
then,
Just
look,
on that.
yes, rents have gone up, but they haven't gone up that much, right?
Grand,
But
no.
most investors, I would imagine, in a very similar position. Yeah. If you were, and I think that portfolio, I've got to do an update on it at some point, but before we started selling down stuff and before we refinanced, I think we refinanced 4 properties in it. It was about a 62-ish, 60% LVR or somewhere or other.
Still strong, yeah.
Which is pretty good, right?
Definitely.
So, yeah, it wasn't costing us a hell of an amount. And it was like, I don't know how many properties were in there, 18 or 19 properties.
Yeah, right.
I can't remember, right?
Yeah.
But then interest rates gone up.
Yeah,
We
smashed
sold
it.
some stuff down, you know, was one of the drivers of it all, just because we just didn't want to carry the negative cash flow.
Yeah.
But what's left is pretty good.
Yeah, that's good.
It's pretty good stuff. So
That's
anyway.
it, and man, that's like the best way of looking at doing it. You know, if you're building it like that, and I just love banking profits. You know what I mean? Like it means you've won. People
Well,
think
you
of like
bank
paying,
it, but then you deploy it somewhere else and take on more debt, right?
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is the point about the entry and the exit.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be enough's got to be enough.
Yeah.
Right?
But yeah, man, I'm a big believer, and I'm a very big fan of it. It's what makes it work. It all happened when I sold my the very first one I bought in 2019. I sold it in 2009. I sold it in 2017, and mate, like it was just changed everything I did from then on. When I realized like what it did for me, so it's very important, mate.
Nice to have money sitting around.
I put it back in the market pretty quick.
Yeah, I bet you did. All right, mate.
Good sesh.
What's next?
Anything
you gotta tell us? School of Property. What's happening?
School of Property, mate. I've just got a mate. What I wanted to do was help people make a decision kind of around it as well, and help them with it. And so we brought a strategist in that can help chat to people about their portfolios. Whole idea of School of Property is kind of sharing pretty much everything that I know about property in the last 15 years and all the portfolios I built. I've got a 50 plus property portfolio now. All the things
That
that
sounds
I've
like
done.
a massive headache.
I've got a great assistant.
Yes, you do. God.
But yeah, man, everything I've learned over all those years is pretty much all the secrets and all the way that I really built it, and the way that I properly believe you can and should invest in property, and that will get you to a retired position. Mate, that's all in there. And we're still building it out. We're still adding heaps of stuff in there as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, so we've got a strategist on now that can, have direct chats with people if they want to, inquire about it and see if it's the right fit for them in building their portfolios. Namely for people, I mean, obviously it helps a lot of people out starting in their journey. Who maybe have no idea what they're doing, or they're just starting out, they're just putting the feelers out. Obviously, you're going to get from the absolute beginners and basics. I've got over 25 fundamental videos in there, just building the basic understanding of how to invest, and then building your own strategy, and then going through the finance and structuring everything the whole way through. But it's in particular, what we found is the people who have received it the best have been those probably between about 3 to 10 properties.
Okay.
There's a dude that I had that was 10 property investor, and like it was pretty like knowledgeable on most stuff. And he said, mate, there was 3 modules in particular for him. He said just blew his mind. There's stuff he just didn't realize, and he just went through a whole, changed his whole philosophy on how he built the portfolio. And he's gearing up to have a massive year. But it will change your think. I guarantee you, it will change your thinking on investing. If you're not like a 10 plus, if you're not at 10 plus, or even probably higher than that as well, there's some pretty advanced stuff here that took me from even when because I got stuck at 7, and then I got stuck again at 20. And then it was kind of different points that I learned how to get past even the 20, and then it's just been on steroids since then. So it's there's a lot of juicy stuff in there.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, if people
How
want
do
to
you
go
find
and
it?
people want to go check out and book in, they can head over to www.schoolofproperty.com.au. And then obviously there's the www.australianpropertyscout.com.au for
Go and check it out.
anyone wants to chat to us about the buyers agency side as well.
Is your calendar closed at the moment?
I believe we reopened it. The School of Property one's definitely open.
Yeah.
The APS one we definitely toggle on and off. I'm pretty sure it's open at the moment.
Yeah.
Just due to obviously.
Back to the point.
Yeah,
You can
being
only
able to
find so
service
many
enough
great
clients.
properties, right?
Yeah, that's it. So it's very selective these days as well.
All right, Sam Gordon, thanks for coming in, mate. I know
Phil,
it's a
mate.
long way from the
Always a
sunny
pleasure.
shores of the Gold Coast.
Always a pleasure, mate.
And I'll see you. I'll be up at an AREC conference. If anyone's tuning in and wants to come and say good day, come check us down. I'll catch up with you.
All right, Phil.
Okay.
Thanks for having us on, mate. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, you too, mate. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Remember, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, Smart Property Investment or Smart Property HQ is where you find us on social media. We'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.